The dirt road to the ranch was long and narrow, stretching through fields that had once been green, but now lay dull under the weight of late summer dust. The truck rattled as it slowed near the old wooden gate, paint peeling, hinges groaning like something tired of holding on. She sat in the passenger seat, hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on the house in the distance. It was bigger than she expected, yet somehow lonelier, standing there against the wide sky as if it had been waiting too long for something that never came. She had come for work, or at least that's what she told herself. A nursing job. Temporary. Simple. Care for a dying woman, then leave. No attachments. No questions. That was the plan. But plans have a way of unraveling the moment you step onto land soaked with old memories and unspoken truths. The man driving barely spoke. His name was Daniel, though everyone around town seemed to call him Dan. He had the look of someone who carried responsibility like a second spine, straight-backed but heavy-eyed. When he parked the truck, he didn't help her out, just nodded toward the porch. "That's the house," he said, voice low. "My mother's inside. She's not got much time." The way he said it made it clear he'd already said those words too many times, to doctors, to neighbors, to himself. She nodded, shouldered her bag, and walked up the steps, the wood creaking under her feet like a warning. Inside, the air smelled of medicine, old furniture, and something faintly sweet, like dried flowers. The woman in the bed was smaller than she imagined, her skin pale and thin, eyes closed but restless beneath their lids. This was Margaret. The reason she was here. The reason she had crossed 3 counties and taken a job most people would refuse. As she set her bag down and began checking vitals, something strange tugged at her chest. A familiarity she couldn't explain. She shook it off. It was just nerves. Or fatigue. Or the way death seems to echo in rooms like this. Days passed into a quiet routine. She woke early, prepared medication, cleaned, fed, comforted. Margaret rarely spoke, but when she did, her words were sharp, lucid, and strangely probing. She asked about her past, her family, why she chose nursing. The questions felt less like curiosity and more like searching. One afternoon, as sunlight slanted through the curtains, Margaret reached out with trembling fingers and caught her wrist. "You have your mother's eyes," she whispered. The words hit harder than they should have. "My mother?" she asked gently, thinking it was confusion. But Margaret's gaze was steady, almost knowing. "Yes," she murmured. "Those eyes don't forget." That night, sleep refused to come. She lay in the small guest room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind move through the fields like a low, restless breath. Her thoughts drifted back to her childhood, fragmented memories of a woman who disappeared too early, stories never fully told. She had been raised by relatives who avoided the past like a wound that never healed right. She had learned not to ask too much. But here, in this house, questions pressed in from all sides. Daniel remained distant but polite, grateful in the way people are when they don't know how else to be. He worked the ranch all day, coming in at dusk smelling of hay and sweat, his face lined with worry. Sometimes he watched her from the doorway as she worked, as if trying to figure her out. She caught his gaze more than once, and each time he looked away, jaw tightening. There was tension there, unspoken, hovering like a storm that refused to break. The secret came closer with each passing day. Margaret grew weaker, but her mind sharpened, as if urgency fueled clarity. One evening, she asked Daniel to leave the room. He hesitated, then obeyed. The door closed, and the house seemed to hold its breath. Margaret motioned her closer. "You didn't come here by accident," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "And neither did I live this long without facing what I did." Fear crawled up her spine. "What do you mean?" she asked. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I took something that wasn't mine," she said. "A child. I told myself it was for the best. I told myself lies until they felt like truth." The words landed like stones. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure it could be heard outside the room. "My son," Margaret continued, "was young, stubborn, proud. He loved a woman I disapproved of. When she got pregnant, I panicked. I had money, influence. I made choices that destroyed lives." The room spun. Pieces began sliding into place, forming a picture she didn't want to see. "You're saying," her voice broke. Margaret nodded weakly. "I am saying you were taken from your father, from your brother, from this ranch." The world seemed to collapse inward, every sound muffled, every thought blurring. She wanted to deny it, to stand up and walk out, but her legs wouldn't move. "Why tell me now?" she whispered. Margaret smiled sadly. "Because I'm dying. And because secrets rot souls. I don't want to die carrying this one." When Daniel returned, something in her face must have changed, because he froze in the doorway. She stood slowly, heart racing, eyes locked on him. "She told me," she said simply. He frowned, confusion giving way to alarm. "Told you what?" Silence stretched between them until Margaret spoke again, her voice weak but firm. "She is your sister." The word hung in the air, heavy and irreversible. Daniel staggered back as if struck. "That's not funny," he said, anger rising. "That's sick." But Margaret didn't flinch. She repeated it, adding details only someone who knew the truth could know. Names, dates, places. The room filled with years of buried lies clawing their way into the light. Daniel left the house that night. The sound of his truck faded into the dark, leaving behind a silence thicker than before. She sat by Margaret's bed, numb, holding the hand of a woman who had upended her entire life. "I'm sorry," Margaret whispered again and again. She didn't know what forgiveness looked like in that moment. She only knew that nothing would ever be simple again. Morning came with a dull, aching light. Daniel hadn't returned. The ranch felt abandoned, the land stretching endlessly, indifferent to human pain. Margaret's breathing grew shallow, uneven. She called her closer one last time. "You don't owe me kindness," she said, "but you owe yourself the truth. Don't run from it like we did." Those were her final words. Margaret died just after sunrise, the room filled with a strange peace that felt undeserved. The days after were a blur of arrangements, paperwork, and quiet grief. Daniel returned eventually, eyes hollow, movements mechanical. They barely spoke. When they did, words felt inadequate, fragile. He struggled with anger, betrayal, disbelief. She struggled with the weight of a past she never chose. Yet beneath it all, something else stirred, recognition. A shared laugh that surfaced unexpectedly. Similar habits. The same stubborn set of the jaw. One evening, they sat on the porch watching the sun sink behind the fields. "I don't know what to do with this," Daniel said finally. "I don't know how to be your brother." She nodded, tears slipping free. "I don't know how to be your sister," she replied. They sat in silence, letting the truth exist without forcing it into shape. The dark secret that rode back to the ranch didn't destroy it. It cracked it open. Over time, they learned to speak honestly, to mourn what was lost, and build something new from what remained. The ranch became a place not of lies, but of reckoning. Healing came slowly, unevenly, like rain after a long drought. And though the past could never be undone, the future, fragile and uncertain, finally felt like something they could face together. If stories like this, stories of hidden truths, broken families, and the slow, painful road to healing, move you, stay with us. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional journeys that remind us how deeply human we all are, and how even the darkest secrets can lead to light when they're finally brought home.